Good evening. It's after quite some time I'm returning back to this format of video recording and everything. I was a bit busy with my own things. As I had promised in the first few videos, that is either the first one or the second one, I had given a brief introduction. In the second video, I had mentioned, or rather, I'm not sure about this, but it was either the second or the third one, in which I've extensively covered how I do my nitya and why I believe involvement is very necessary in your nitya. Um, the this being the fourth or the third or the fifth, I'm not very sure. Apologies for that. But this being that last few legs of the video, I've decided to answer a few of the questions that formed the initial basis of the fundamental idea of making these videos. Were these questions that came to me. So, without any further ado, I would like to get into these questions. And the first question is experiences and why it is necessary, rather, why it is important for someone to not get attached to experiences. I think I've mentioned why it's important for any person to not get attached to anything for that matter. Experiences are a different case altogether, but experiences again, it's important that you do not get attached to these. Why? Because then the whole thing becomes a rat race of you chasing that experience and your consciousness wanting to just limit the whole journey to getting that head rush or getting that experience at your own command. That becomes your siddhi almost. So, if that is the end goal that you are chasing, that one experience or that depth in sadhana that you once got to experience, if that's what you're chasing, then that becomes your siddhi. You've achieved that accomplishment of that siddha, but that is nothing, right? So it should always be somehow connecting to Baba should be the end goal, um, is what I believe. And more importantly, why it is important for you to understand that every experience needn't be occult in nature. Third, I would also like to give an anecdotal experience that I had, um, to better help you understand why it's important for you to understand that experiences needn't always be occult in nature, but more importantly, why it's important for any person to imbibe these experiences in your own life. Um, there was a period in time where, um, so one thing about Bhairav Sadhana is, um, you do, um, your temperament kind of takes a toll. I don't know. See, for the longest part, for the longest period of time, I was of the thought that in my case, not really. My temperament is very well under control, but it is only after my sister pointed it out, and very naturally she pointed it out that I am a bit out of my usual temperament and compared to how you used to be. Um, Post which I actually took a notice of it and I understood. So, as a ramification of this, there came a period of time in my life wherein there were constant feuds with my mother. And my mother is, I am very close to my mother. I am extremely close to my mother, especially I've also mentioned the kind of background that I come from, my familial background, and etc. So, me, my sister, my mother, we were like a group of very thick friends growing up, because my mother was also growing up with us. We were growing up, she was teaching us, she was always there as well. So, very close with my mother, but these fights were happening and it was getting the better of me. And my mother is very similar to me. So, when these fights start, of course, these fights start with a pointer, but then eventually it becomes a case of who lasts longer. It becomes a case of verbal discourse only, verbal diarrhea for the lack of a better word, and it's just one upping. That is it, that happens. And it happened for a prolonged period of time that the next day it would all be normal. I would go wake up, I'd give her a hug, it'll be all normal, and the next day something similar would happen and it will be the same thing all over again. This lasted for a long period of time and it kind of started pissing me off because I don't like, first of all, having to frown at my mother every other minute or second. I would always like to be around her, hugging her without any reason or excuse. So once during my nitya, I had initially, from the start of the nitya itself, I had mentioned, I had told Baba that, Baba, today I'm going to ask something of you. It is usually not the case that I ask something of him, uh, owing to many reasons. First of all, I don't want this to be a medium of me achieving my own selfish ends. Secondly, I don't think that I have that kind of karmic or sadhana from my older lives that I can get anything manifested just on the basis of my own will and request to Baba. Third, I believe that the practice shouldn't be a very need forward practice, that just because you need a lot of things you practice this. I don't think so. So I always and very rarely I ask anything of Baba, but that one day I had put this thought initially itself toward the start of my nitya, that Baba, today I'm going to ask something of you. And by the end of my nitya I had told him. And um, I had actually not told him, I had told this thing to him, that the whole thing was happening with my mother and all. And again, this is all involvement. It's not as if Baba is sitting in front of me, I'm having a full-fledged conversation with him. That's not the case. This is all me supposing that he is hearing me. I had mentioned this in the start of the nitya, and at the end of the nitya, after I did my samarpan mantra and a bit of dhyan and all, and my dhyan is always very useless. I do, it's very bad. So I had this sudden download of information, and all of this, the whole idea of why, me giving you this anecdote is to help you guys understand that it's one thing to have experiences, it's an entirely different thing to imbibe those experiences into your daily lives. See, Baba might give you, and also I think I had mentioned this, why every other experience needn't be occult in nature. So if you're not able to imbibe these small teachings that Baba is giving you, why would he give you any other occult experience? The idea of experiences, to start with, is um, never to just show you, or is never a deity trying to throw his or her weight around. It is always to teach you something. And if you are the kind of person who is not able to learn from a small experience, why would, or rather, how could, or how would you be able to learn anything, or rather imbibe anything off of this experience if given to you? That's the bigger question that I believe everyone should ask if you are a sadhak. In my case, this experience was such that it was a very big, sudden download of information. For people who've had this, they'll understand what I'm talking about. It's as if there is suddenly a book in front of you and you're reading from this. And it's as if this book was always in front of you. I also believe that to a certain extent, all the information that, I don't know if I've already mentioned this, but I believe that to a certain extent, all of the information that manifests in front of you comes from within. Again, to a certain extent. There are cases in which Bhairav can be your own guru. So, let's keep it, that's a topic not for me to speak on, because I've also understood that my adhikara on these things are not much. These are, let's not predicate. So Baba told me that, Suraj, um, you are fighting with your mother on a daily basis, and you know that at the end of these fights, um, it is just a verbal discourse of one-upmanship, nothing more than that. It's not an actual fight. First of all, why do you want to, of all people, your parents? The thing about mothers, and I believe it's universal to a certain extent, at least in India I can say this, or in the Eastern culture I can say this, that mothers have taken pitfalls, or they've uh, taken a lot of conscious failures in their stride, in becoming parents, in balancing their own lives, in taking care of us when we were childs, and etc. Why do you think it's necessary for you to one up your mother of all people? That is the first question that he asked me. It's a very general thing that I should have known by myself, and I did know. but it came to me in a different manner. It was asked to me in a different manner, that I felt a lot more vulnerable when that question was raised, but when it was raised by myself, I was not very vulnerable. So the state of mental being was different when it was raised during my nitya. The second thing, you are trying to break their, or rather you're trying to bring a change in their habit of, one-upmanship in this verbal discourse. You think that it's wrong and you're trying to bring a change. But while when you're trying to bring a change, what you're eventually becoming is what you're afraid of. See, they have made a habit out of this for the past 10, 20, 15 years, and you're trying to change that habit. And how are you changing that habit? By doing the same thing that you don't want them to do. You are doing the same thing, and in the process, while you're doing it, you eventually become a prey to that same thing. And eventually, when you have children one day, you end up doing the same thing. You try to prove your mother wrong, you want to keep on having a same verbal discourse and all, you finally win the conversation, and what have you developed? A habit. The second time it happens, developing the habit again, and then it goes on, becomes habit. You can't change it anymore. You have become what you were afraid of. So that is one thing that Baba taught me. So I had this experience, and the next day, it's not as if the next day this fight, the case in my story was such that post that experience, nothing really even happened between my mother and all, that I had to. But post, after a long time again, fights would happen. Of course, between parents and children, fights are very normal fights. Of course, I'm talking about, but during those fights, I'd be slightly cognizant of this teaching that I had gotten, and I'd try to imbibe, at least to the best of my abilities, whenever such a thing would break off. So that imbibing and learning from that experience is necessary, is one thing that I've wanted to tell you guys, and why it's important for you guys to understand that. Second question, or rather, second is actually a lot of solace when it comes to breaks. So, breaks in Nitya uh, are usually followed by Apatkal Upasana. Um, how do I look at it? I don't know. Very honestly, I don't know, but this is what I believe. I had recently read in one Instagram post that deities are not that foolish. They are not just worried about, oh, you having done 1 lakh japa, 3 lakh japas and all. If that's really what just matters to them, I mean, just you are doing that. Now that I'm saying it, it almost feels wrong, because I think that has been the result so far, because the intentions, all those things don't really matter. As long as you do seva to the mantra, the results will be there, because these things work like clockwork. Now that I was saying it, it came to me. But I believe breaks, if one thing that I've never done is, I have never ever, till the point from the day I started my Upasana, never in a day have I taken a conscious break. That today I will just take a break just because I'm not feeling like. Of course, there were first few hiccups of 1 week. In between that 1 week, I'll start, maybe do it one day. The second day I might not do it. Then there came a period where I decided that from today I'm going to do it, and that day I mark as the start of my Upasana, and from that day onward I had never broken it. Consciously, never. Although that being said, there did come a period in time where I had to take breaks. These the breaks are three in number. It happened in long intervals, between among long intervals. I was preparing for the armed forces while I was having my interviews. I felt sick, things like that, dozed off, sick, and of course, when I say sick, right now I'm sick and I'm making this video. So when I say I got sick or I fell ill, I properly fell ill, and I dozed off. Especially in the last few days of the SSBs, you have to do certain physical things and all, and you get a bit injured. There's a lot of body pain, things like that will be there. On top of that, if you're already very feverish, cold, viral fever sorts, very health. I had a 103 fever, so I'm not. Let's just to tell you guys that I'm not making excuses. On top of that, I had to go through a lot of physical strain. That was the first break that was there. Then there were two other breaks, similar fashion, not conscious. I had zero control over it. What I usually do when such breaks happen is that the next day, or rather, when at possible days, you cannot, if you are very sick, extremely sick, and you've missed uh, your Nitya, I believe that the deity will understand. That is what I believe. If the Shastras say otherwise, the Shastras are right. Right? I mean, of course, that they are the final authority. But I believe that the deities will understand. Especially somebody like Baba. I feel he's a bit considerate. With that being said, I do not mean to say anything else other than that, but I do think that he's considerate and he'll listen to you and he'll also accommodate these things. I believe that from my own experiences. At a day that you see fit, or at a day that you know for a fact that today I will be undisturbed, I will be able to do a very long and elaborate puja. That day, if you're usually doing 5 malas, in my case, back when I used to do 5 malas and I had to do my apatkal upasana, I would do 20. And when I say 20 malas, that will also be followed by 20 ashtakams as well. That was my way of apologizing to Baba, and with the I'll very from the bottom of my heart I'll tell Baba ki take a lot of my sadhana away from my past life or this life or anything, but please don't consider this a break in my upasana. All I want is the 3-year period. I know when I started, I in my mind that date is not there, but I've jotted it down somewhere. So from that day onwards, I want 3 days to go past. 3 years to go past, post which I will do certain other things which I don't want to get into right now. So breaks can happen. It is important for you to make sure that these are not conscious breaks. And if breaks do happen, do very long, elaborate. Sorry, Upasana. Make some bhog, lemon rice, etc. Whatever is special to Baba, make that and offer it to Baba. That is how I deal with it. It has happened to me 3 times. Even after the third time, I've had solid help and solid guidance from Baba, um, which gave me a sort of affirmation that Baba still is there. His presence is still there. I could be wrong about everything that I've spoken, but few things, you know that it's actually that way, and you don't need any more confirmation from any other person. That template applies to these cases. So even after my breaks, after continuing my Nitya, I've had good experiences with Baba. So let's just don't make everything about that break. Continue. The necessity of expressions and personal connect, I've mentioned this. This is again involvement. The importance of emotion again is something that I've mentioned. Involvement. I would like to mention something that a Naga had once shared with me. This is again the sect of Nagas that I had met when I went to the Mahakumbh. So my question to him was, I have the biggest issue with concentrating when I do my Nitya. I mean, post my Nitya when I do my Dhyan. I have very tiresome time concentrating at times, and very rarely I get very solid Dhyan. I enter a trance, very visual, full state and all. Um, but otherwise, very bad dhyan I have. So I asked this Naga, relatively younger Naga, and he told me that he's been doing things for 12 years, 6 to 7 years, though he's been doing it religiously. He still has trouble. What do you think is special about you that you think that within just few years or 1 or 2 years of practice you will just crack this? Is the question he asked. He followed this question up with a statement. It was a rhetorical question, so he followed this up with a statement, and he told, throughout our lives we've built a habit of not focusing on things, and it's a habit, it's become a habit. So intrinsically now our nature is such that we don't have that kind of extremely attentive focus, because we've built that habit throughout years. We have done it 23 years. We've built this constant habit of not focusing on things for a prolonged period of time, and suddenly you have picked up a practice and you are trying to break that habit and bring in the element of concentration and focus. And what are you rivaling? You're rivaling 23 years of constant practice of not concentrating. Be assured that it will take a lot of time. At least, this is 23 years of practice, right? At least half that, 10 years of practice. 10 years of practice post which you might have that single pointed concentration. That is samadhi, what we are talking about. Again, no, he did not mention samadhi and all. This is one thing that he told me which gave me a lot of solace. He also told me that there might come a point in time. Actually, he did not tell me this. I almost told this to myself in the guise of him. He almost. So the thing is, there might come a point in time wherein you're doing your job, you're doing your nam job, and you might just forget about the deity altogether, and you're thinking all sorts of things. And eventually, it will become a habit of just thinking about all sorts of things. Initially, when you are thinking, you would have tried to bring your mind back. But now that you've made a practice out of this, now you are fully invested in thinking of these whatever random thoughts are coming, heroine, this, that, this, that, and you've forgotten the habit. You've stopped, pulling yourself back to the deity. Don't do that. Be cognizant of that change. That when you stop bringing your concentration back to the deity, that is when you have to be very conscious and consciously pulling back yourself to the deity again. I had also a small teaching from Baba. So when lustful thoughts enter your mind during your sadhana, for some reason, or rather, I had gotten this from somewhere. What I had gotten is that when lust enters your mind during your sadhana, that those are the times precisely when you have to think like repeatedly about the deity, about the form of the deity, the symbolism, this, that, this, that, this, that, everything you think about, you meditate on each part of meditation is just focusing, concentrating on this. The khadga is there, the shield is there, khappar, abhayamudra, trident, head of Brahma, Janayu, crown, crescent, on top of a body, human ego. Think about the story of Kal Bhairav and have that concentration when lust rises in you when you're doing your nitya, and it's possible. In my case, it has happened to me. This is what I've abided with. It has worked for me. It almost becomes second nature to you, and it also helps you build your concentration overall, not just when lusty thoughts enter, but overall your concentration gets better because for at least 2 minutes you are very fervently thinking about Baba. The importance of relearning the same topics. Importance of reading is also something. Importance of reading, I've mentioned books from Arthur Avalon, random books, a lot of blogs. Adhyatmikta, of course, is a book. Vigyan Bhairavi Tantra. Vigyan Bhairavi Tantra commentaries by Osho is a decent book. I would not call it a great book. Books by Aurobindo. Aurobindo books. Yeah. So books by Aurobindo. These are things that will help you. Autobiography of a Yogi. It is from that book that I learned few things. Or rather, I became aware of few things that I was actually naturally doing. And I could attach that added sense of godliness to the things I was doing. So, reading is one thing. Rereading, I believe, is the most important thing. These topics in books of Tantra are topics such that just a simple one time read will give you an idea of these things, but having an idea is okay, but to understand the essence, the tattva, is another thing, which can only come from multiple reading. You can only be asked to read. You are not an upasaka if you need a person sitting right next to you reading these books on a daily basis to you. No. That is all I'm saying about that. Um, while putting a pin on that, podcasts by Rajarshi Nandy Ji. I've mentioned this. Please keep on hearing the podcast again and again and again and again and again and again and again. I've reached a certain stage in life wherein I know a lot of these podcasts. By I can, at least the first one or two podcasts, I know what he's going to say next. But there are reminders, there are points that every time I hear this podcast, I believe at least you can at least listen to all these podcasts at least 7 times till you stop learning something new from it. There was a period in time where I really wanted to. I'm in that period of time, uh, when I just really, my heart aches to connect with Baba. But I know that I don't have that kind of penance. But my heart still aches. I think about him every other beating second. I hear things about Baba. Read things on spirituality every other second, which all finally adds up to my wantedness to connect with Baba. That is called mumukshata in Sanskrit. That ache from the heart. That you really desperately want to connect with Baba. That word I noticed maybe on the third time I listened to Nandiji. Why is it important? It's not important. But trust me, it will help you. Take it from me. I won't get too much into this because it's already a 27-minute long video for no apparent reason. Sadhana is not just a numbers game, is one thing that I have told, but as I was making that statement, I borderline disagreed with me. That being said, I also disagreed with Rajarshi Nandiji's statement about, even if you do the tantric rituals, Dakshinachara or whatever the achara is, and you do the process, you worship a deity with a certain sticking to the shastras to the T. If you do it, you will get results, even if you do it without any belief. Is one statement that he had made once. I actually did not agree with that statement, but right now I almost do. Another thing, when I say another thing and I'm moving on while I'm not making pointers, I'm just moving on slowly to the questions. Why it is also important, or rather why you can also disagree with your guru, is one thing. These are the few disagreements I had with Nandiji, which right now changed. But you can have disagreements with your gurus. Healthy disagreements and healthy discourse is what made this dharma this great. I was hearing my guru speak on this, and he was telling how for 600 years non-stop there were discussions between Vedantins, Dvait and Advait, and there were non-stop discussions that went on for 600 years. The discussions were carried on by their gurus and their chelas and their gurus and their chelas, and it went on, and the essence of all of this is what is contained in our shastras. So our dharma is the result of a lot of discourse and a lot of questioning, not to throw shade on any other, but I believe if there is a dharma, of course there are no other dharmas, but if there is a sect or a religion that allows such free authority, it is Sanatan Dharma. I can say this with a lot of conviction, honestly. Moving on, sadhana and its boring nature. Wow. Sadhana, this is one point where I actually disagree with my guru. sadhana can be boring. I have felt it to be boring. I have felt it to be a task at a lot of times, but that is the thing. The task is to start, but once I start, I enjoy it. I enjoy giving the flowers. I enjoy giving water, offering bhog, everything. I enjoy that. I don't enjoy the jap. I enjoy chanting ashtakams. Um, I believe it's okay. The argument is that a person who does not enjoy the process will stop eventually. But in my case, that has never been the thing, because I take that comment in my stride. I make sure, because somebody has said this of his caliber, somebody of his caliber has said this. I will make sure that I will never stop, even if it gets monotonous, even if it gets boring. The thing is, with the absence of guru, the situation can be such that it can become monotonous quite quick. But consider that as a test and stick to it. Please stick to it. Even if even if the deity that you're worshipping comes down and tells you that tomorrow skip, don't skip. The days you will skip if you are a female will be the days when you have your periods. The days, again, it's not that it's impure and all. We, our dharma of all dharmas considers female to be such a pure thing. It's a different case what the reality is right now, but nothing that nothing that is what I believe. If there is a person who is good, and you know that the person is good, I'm not talking about your own personal things, a personal virtue and all. If there is a good lady, a helpful and kind lady, I don't think that there is anything about her that is negative in nature, tamasic nature, periods, anything that is widely accepted as being something negative. I don't think it's negative. I've always gotten. We do Kanya Puja of small kids in small, small, small children. We do Kanya Puja of, and we consider them to be deities. We understand that there is of all the 10 forms of the mother, there is a form of the mother in every little girl that you see, and these are all beautiful things. All beautiful things. Um, Sadhana and its boring nature, I've already said this. Moving on. The plateau that seems impossible. Of course, the initial ride will be with full of experiences. It'll hit a plateau. One thing that my guru has told me is that understand that the plateau will come. Accept it. Honor it. That the plateau has come, because the plateau comes after a certain period of testing. And that plateau itself is a testing phase. Last through it. What my guru has told, to quote him, is that it's like a reservoir building up. One day the gates will open and you'll understand of every single day, one, each day sadhana, you'll understand that, oh, all of those sadhana has finally come to giving all of this to me. And you will understand that. But if you are to understand what you've been storing, you have to get through that plateau. That plateau is generally understood to be a time period of 3 years. That will be it for this video, because it has already been a little too long. I don't know what I've spoken of. I've tried to be as articulate as possible, but very clearly I failed. But this is okay. There are a few more questions. I think one more video and we'll be done with this. Science is the most advanced stage. Sorry. Science in the most advanced stage is closer to Vedanta than ever before, is a statement that Alfred North Whitehead had made. He is a physicist. That is all. Om Bhairavaya Namah.